Good morning, everybody. This is Frances Castaneda-Dice, President of the Houston Easton Chamber of Commerce. And it's an honor to welcome you to our business webinar. Today we have Working from Home, Avoiding Cyber Attacks and Best Practices for Security. In a couple of minutes, we're going to hear from Jason Rorie and Michael Trpkosh. But before we do that, we have a sponsor for our program today, Christopher Sanchez with Comcast Business. Christopher, thank you so much for being a sponsor of our program today.
Hello, how are you doing? My name is Chris. I'm from Comcast Business, and I service all of the Easton Chamber area.
Wonderful. And you're welcome to say any opening remarks. And I know we have a special question that we're going to ask all participants on Facebook Live and that are watching it right now to answer. But any opening remarks?
Yes, ma'am. I would invite everybody to answer the question, and I would like to have some candid conversations about what's making you guys successful during these difficult times and our new normal, if you will. So look forward to seeing you guys out in the field and talking to you soon.
Great. And Christopher, in the chat box, if you wouldn't mind putting your email address and phone number so that people can get a hold of you, and we'll add that to Facebook Live as well. So thank you so much for being a sponsor today. Today's program is on cybersecurity, and if you haven't noticed, it's been a big topic of conversation given the COVID-19 pandemic and many companies shifting from fully working from home to instead of the workplace. So when people think about cybersecurity, they often feel that it just probably won't happen to them. Either they're safe enough with their companies, isn't big enough to matter, or things like that. But in reality, small and mid-sized businesses often are the perfect target for cyber attacks. Whether your organization has had a cyber program in place for years or you've just getting started, there's always something new to learn. And today we're very honored to have Jason Rorie, founder and chief security officer at Elevated Technologies, and Mike Trpkosh, director of cybersecurity at Pathway Forensics, for this conversation about cybersecurity best practices, potential pitfalls, and how to optimize your cybersecurity program. Jason and Mike, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Glad to be here.
Wonderful. And Michael, we'll start with you. If you want to just give some open remarks of what we can learn of what's happening on this topic.
Yeah, so, it's been a challenging situation for everyone. The biggest challenge that I've seen is clients moving from a brick and mortar to a hybrid solution where you have partial of your workforce working remote to an entirely remote workforce. And a lot of organizations were not prepared for that. Their defensive perimeter was more geared toward one location versus the remote. And the challenge was staffing up for that and getting the technology in place, educating the workforce on how to work remote and work securely.
Thank you. And Jason, would you like to have opening remarks on this topic?
Yeah, just kind of echo what Michael said. I mean, it's a whole different environment now with everybody shifting to work from home. There's different environment, different set of distractions, and that's what a lot of these cyber criminals are betting on now that everybody's working from home. So it's just a whole nother level of being vigilant and just taking your time because the threats have increased tremendously. So it's just again, cyber criminals, they're banking on this new way of working and know that there's extra distractions, and they're definitely taking advantage of it.
Well, I'm afraid already, but let's start talking about a little bit about how the COVID impacted some of the organizations that you work with, or what you're hearing out there. Do you know of any cybersecurity best practices that you're glad that are in place right now? And were there any gaps that you identified during the pandemic that you were able to address and have added to help companies be protected?
For us, I think that one of the new best practices, I guess, that's even more critical now with everybody being disjointed and working from home, really brings a whole nother level of verification to certain things. Because, the email phishing scams, I think the number they've increased over 600%. It was something crazy like that. So really taking your time and verifying the emails that you receive, if it comes from a coworker, a boss, a vendor, a client that doesn't look quite right, you're kind of unsure, and especially if it has anything to do with money, some sort of transaction, is verifying that. Picking up the phone, getting who sent you the email, or at least who you think sent you the email, get them on the other end of the phone and verify that the transaction or whatever they're asking you to do, it truly is legitimate. Because again, with all the distractions at home, it's really easy to fall, for a phishing scam because they're getting more and more sophisticated. So that was one of the biggest things that we've done and helped our clients is just making sure that, take your time, slow down, verify things, because I've seen a lot of people, a lot of companies lose a lot of money, and I've even seen people lose their jobs because of it. So it's just, something that you really have to take the time and slow down.
That's a very good point, slowing down. I even heard one of our chamber members, they got an email from, they thought was their accounting person, and said, please authorize this. It was a $2,500 payment, and it looked legit, and she thought it was from her, and she approved it, and the transfer was sent. And then they realized, wait, but this doesn't look right. So just be slow, verify, especially right now. Michael, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, what Jason said is exactly right. I think the biggest thing that organizations can do is really focus on security awareness training. October is Security Awareness Month, so it's a great time to roll out or enhance an existing security awareness program. The increase in attacks that Jason referred to are all social engineering based. Well, one of the things that I was looking for, and some of my colleagues during the COVID crisis, was these new attacks. There's not new attacks. They're retreads of old attacks. And why are they still using those? Because they still work. That's what's interesting, is they're exploiting what the vulnerability. We get better, but yet we don't get better, and so what Jason said, slow down. The security awareness training, there's 3 to 5 steps any person can do with an incoming email, especially one where there's financial implications to it. 5 steps, like hover over the sender's name and make sure that it looks like it's coming from there. Anytime that you're being backed into a corner, it's a must. We're going to disconnect you. Those are red flags as well. Simple things like that. I'm sure Jason has some other tips, but easy things like that. The average person can do that, but Jason's exactly right about the distractions at home. There's more going on. You're not as focused as you would be if you're in the office. So it is kind of the new normal.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So as companies are looking at their new normal, what would be some key considerations they should be aware of? Especially some of them are going back to the office, but some of them are going to be working remotely throughout the whole year and up until next year.
I think one of the things that organizations need to focus on is 2 security topics that they could really add to their defenses are the VPN and multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication just increases the complexity or reduces the likelihood that an attacker is going to somehow compromise your password. Now they need 2 factors. The VPN, it encrypts all of the communications between you in a remote location and your brick and mortar company network.
Well, that makes me feel a little comfortable now that our staff is working from home. We do have a VPN, and every morning when I log in, I am very grateful that we have another day of safety. But we get tons of those phishing emails, and it's just very nerve-wracking. Even some of my employees say that they get emails from me thinking that it's from me, but it doesn't sound like me, so they know to just delete it, which is very, very scary. Another question here is, what are some common cyber threats that you feel will always be around, or is there anything new that we should keep an eye on? I know you talked about something new, but Jason, do you see anything new that's coming out there?
Well, I think phishing emails will never go anywhere. I think over 90% of all breaches start with a phishing email. So those will always be around. I think some of the newer tactics are more in the social engineering realm outside of email. There's a thing called phishing, which is, I think, becoming more and more popular, which is, bad actors picking up the telephone and calling companies to try to get sensitive information. So that's where the phishing is voice. More social media, social engineering attacks. I think there's over 86 million fake Facebook profiles that hackers use to try to get information from people over social media. So it's just, the hackers realize that, fooling a human's a lot easier than hacking into a computer. So any way that they can get in touch with a human, email, phone calls, social media, and it just really kind of goes back to slowing down, verifying who you're talking to, whatever type of media you're having the conversation in, that you're actually talking to who you think you are. So it's just, again, it's this scary world out there, and these type of threats are just going to get worse. So we just have to stay safe.
Good. So companies might think that cybersecurity is a huge financial investment and potentially one that's tough to justify unless or until an incident occurs. How do you typically address this topic, or do you have any examples of why it's important to make this investment?
I think it's, the business management team, owners, C-level executives. I mean, you have to think about security, and the investment is what is the potential loss? I mean, there's a part of cybersecurity of doing, quantitative analysis for your security investment. I mean, how much could you stand to lose if you don't make the investment? And it's really just calculating return on investment, just like any other type of decision. And they said it's not as expensive as you would think. Training programs are inexpensive to run, email phishing simulations, training videos. We do it for all of our clients. So it's worth looking into and having those conversations. I mean, you don't want to overspend, but at the same time, you need to invest in your security program to protect your business, because at the end of the day, one wrong click and it can cause some massive damage to a business. So you have to be prepared for that.
And Michael, you gave an example, before we started, of someone that just recently got hacked. Can you share that information?
Sure. So it's on the front page of the Wall Street Journal this morning, and it's the largest school district in the Las Vegas area. They fell victim to a ransomware attack, and because a lot of organizations now, we've been preaching, have your backups offline, have your backups offsite. So a lot of organizations are refusing to pay. So now the attackers have stepped up the game by saying, okay, what we've also done, not only have we encrypted all of your data, but before we did, we took a bunch of it. And we're going to show you some snippets of it if you don't believe us, but then we're going to dump all of this confidential and sensitive information out into the public. It's bad enough if it's a regular organization, but if it's a healthcare organization, now they're looking at, fines. It's a mess for organizations. So now, if you choose to go that route where you say we're not going to pay, now they're going to extort you by threatening to release that information. But then they're also going to say, and if you want to pay, now it's going to cost you to get the keys as well. So, I mean, it's a crazy deal. And what Jason was saying was, one of the things that we offer our clients is we offer a benchmark assessment of sorts. And what you can do then is, I don't want to charge somebody a lot of money to tell them what's wrong, so we make it very low cost. But what we do is we talk to you, and exactly what Jason said is, if you don't know what you're protecting, if you have not classified your data, if you don't understand the value of your data, you have no business trying to spend money on security, because you don't know what to spend. And that's what Jason and I we preach that, and we both try to do that, is we want you to understand what's at risk, and then we can help you understand how much to spend. They always say security, there's no ROI on it, but it's cost avoidance. And so that's where we start.
Good answer. So for companies looking to be proactive, cybersecurity solutions for the first time, what might be a good place to start in terms of the services and protection they should look for? Obviously, first give you guys a call, but what were some of the first things for someone doing it for the first time can look forward to doing?
I would say policies and procedures. Wouldn't you agree, Jason? I mean, that's the foundation of your house, really.
Yeah, I would say definitely if you don't have any security policies and procedures, that's a great place to start. Bringing out a company to do an assessment and make sure that their controls, hopefully are in place that would satisfy the policies, because at the end of the day, the policies is what management ownership's expectations are when it comes to security. So you want to make sure that you actually have the controls in place that would satisfy those policies. So, having someone come out, maybe do a gap analysis to make sure that what you have security wise actually does stack up to industry standards and what, could best protect your business. And, if there are gaps, then you can put a plan in place moving forward to kind of fill those gaps and better secure your data.
Good. So Michael gave an example of the Las Vegas ISD being hacked. Jason, can you share a time when you had a particular difficult cybersecurity problem that you helped solve and how it was solved? And what did you learn from that experience that you could share with us?
We've been through, so many, phishing email scams that materialized into extorted money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and helping try to trace that down through, we've dealt with ransomware attacks as well, both from, restoring the data, helping negotiate, with the bad actors to try to get the decryption keys. And of course, I work on the insurance side as well. So I've some experience there with insurance claims and trying to recoup some of the financial loss. So there's a lot to learn. And really, at the end of the day, the biggest lesson is, don't let it happen to you. So that's where really the training comes back into play. And it's having an aware staff is just as important, I think, if not even more important than some of the technology controls that actually help mitigate some of this stuff from happening. So if you're out there and you're not being trained on a regular basis, you should be. It's definitely something to look into.
Great. And now that we're all doing Zoom meetings and Microsoft Teams and we're using our cameras, are there any additional exposures to using the camera for Zoom and Microsoft Teams that you've heard of?
Not really. I think some of the stuff, I'm not saying it's not technically possible for, a hacker to gain access to your system and your camera, but I would be more concerned about the email threats and making sure that when you're working from home, accessing company resources, whether they're in the corporate office over a VPN or cloud-based, that you're doing it properly. And like Michael said, making sure that multi-factor authentication is enabled, you have complex passwords and you're just being, very safe as much as possible when you work from home. So I wouldn't be too concerned with using Zoom and Teams and cameras. I'd just be more concerned about data access and doing that securely.
Well,
I would say that, while it's creepy to think somebody has access to your camera or your microphone, the root of that is probably through a phishing email. If they can get access to that, they're already in your machine. So that is almost a byproduct of the bigger problem.
Thank you. I know that one of our chamber members, Tejas Office Products, has this little device that they gave us, and it's like a door that you just stick onto your camera and it closes. And I use it all the time just because I'm just afraid that someone is out there. But thank you for that. And so can you also, when you talk about cybersecurity insurance, what does it cover? And can you give an example of a claim, any of you two?
Well, with cyber insurance, so there's kind of two parts to it. There's what they call first party and third party coverage. And first party is if you, as the policy holder, the organization, gets hit with a cyber attack that ultimately causes financial loss. The first party coverage would help kind of recoup some of that cost. I mean, it could be a ransomware attack that takes the system down, and you maybe can file a claim because of the lost revenue that you suffered because your systems were down. third party is more to protect you if you were to cause a issue or a cyber attack on a third party organization. That could be a customer, a vendor. So if you get ransomware or someone gets into your system and they use, say, your email to send out phishing emails, and they send it to all your vendors, and one of those organizations click and they get infected and then find out that it was actually your fault, that's where the third party claims come in. They help, kind of offset lawsuits, compliance fines, things of that nature. So you want to make sure that if you have cyber insurance, which you should, that you have pretty comprehensive first and third party coverage within that policy.
And Jason, does your company offer cyber security insurance?
One of my companies does. Cybersecurity Insurance Group is just a boutique insurance agency that I'm a partner in that helps businesses here. We're only licensed in Texas. So yeah, we can definitely help with that.
That's good to know. So a lot of these mom and pop shops, they were not online, and now they're getting online because of COVID-19. And so they have opportunities for exposures. And is it better for companies like that and startups to use and outsource their IT? Because we are a small office and we do outsource our IT, and they monitor our VPN. So is it better to do that than or any other suggestions on how to, for smaller companies that don't have a full-time person?
I would think that there's kind of there's kind of a point of diminishing returns there, because if you're small, that's where you would want the help. But at a certain point, there's also scalability, and if you're too small, it doesn't make sense to have some of the services. So again, we go back to your risk assessment. We go back to looking at, like, for example, logging and monitoring for a mom and pop shop. While it's important, it may not be cost effective for them to do that. So there's different solutions, and you would want to find an organization that is going to tailor to you. But like, I know for a fact, some of the monitoring solutions that are out there, you've got to have the sweet spot is a couple hundred seats, a couple hundred endpoints to make it worth your while. But if you don't know what you're protecting, you don't know how much to spend to protect it.
Interesting. So, who are these hackers that are out there? Do you know what motivates them to do this? And then I also hear now that people are hiring hackers to work for them. What is your thoughts on that? Either of you?
I mean, it's a big business. I mean, they're truly, they're businesses. In these remote locations, they hire hackers and they go to an office and they run it like a company. And their mission is to break into systems and extort money from organizations that they can breach. And that's really what it's all about. Like I think Michael was talking earlier, the days of just someone hijacking your web browser and just causing annoying pop-ups, those days are long gone. When hackers realized that how much money they could make from breaking into systems and extorting, money from people to get their data back in the event of a ransomware. And it's turned into, multi-billion-dollar business out there. So that's why you have to stay safe, because, they're hiring and the hacking groups, they're coming together to create, super groups that are really putting together some pretty nasty stuff. So you, again, just have to get trained, take your time, be safe.
I'll give you an example. About a month and a half ago, my daughter, like a lot of young people, that she's into Instagram, and she worked really hard to get a bunch of followers and stuff. And she called me one Saturday morning and said, my account's been compromised, and the hackers are demanding this. I spent an entire day working with these knuckleheads from the Ukraine, and they seemed like they were nice guys. Hey, don't take this personal. You're going back and forth with them all day long. I actually saved the email threads because I thought I might write a paper or do a presentation about it. But they have a customer support group that if you're having trouble getting the Bitcoin, they'll transfer you to them. They'll talk to you about, it's just like Jason said, these are not hoodie wearing script kiddies. These are very, very intelligent professionals. They know what they're doing, and don't ever think that you're going to outsmart them. They know every possible option of what you're doing. The number of followers she had directly correlated to how much money they asked for, because they know the different levels of what people can do with these Instagram following numbers, and it was crazy. They were telling me all this stuff about how they determine how much money to ask for. Because you're like, well, I don't have that money. Oh, yes, with your number of followers, you can make this much money, and so here's what we're asking. And they want to keep it to where it seems to be a fairly simple decision. Well, I could make this much money, so this is just the cost of doing business. They want to get in, get out, and move on to the next one. It's
so that's pretty scary. So it's just they just took over her I guess password, and now it's theirs. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right, Francis. And guess what? She now is a big fan of multi-factor authentication.
Wow. Say that again, multi-factor authenticator.
Yeah.
And that's the two-way passwords,
Right.
correct?
You get an app for your phone, and the one that I use, and I'm not promoting it, I just use it because I like it, but it's called Authy, A-U-T-H-Y. And you can, any banking, social media, anything that is of value to you, you should check into it and see if there's two-factor authentication available. Like if you do any type of trading, insurance, healthcare, all of it, you can use one app and you just pull it up and it gives you this code, and that's what you type in, and that would have saved her, and she learned a painful lesson.
Oh, I'm so sorry, but I wrote that down, Authy. I'm going to look into that, because my husband will not do anything on his phone to do with his checking account, credit cards, and I do, but I'm going to have to look into that too. Forms of authentication.
Do you ever use Authy, or do you have another app that you use?
No, I don't use any of that, but that's what I'm going to look into now.
Okay.
Thank you. So what made you two get into this business? We'll start with you, Jason.
I started, now it's, I guess, over 20 years. When I was in the military, in the Navy, I had a top secret security clearance. So I got, exposed to a lot of, military grade cryptography, back in the mid 90s. And that really just kind of started my career in IT and security. It's just progressed to today with elevated technologies and a couple other companies that I have, and it's just really a way to help out small businesses from the security aspect, and being the lifeblood of the economy. We're here to try to keep those businesses safe and provide them some pretty robust services that they can afford, and be able to be secure. So that's really kind of what got me into it. I think it's interesting, the way things have developed, especially probably over the last 5 years. And there's just a lot going on and a lot to stay in front of. So it's exciting. I mean, I really enjoy it, and it's fun some days.
Yeah, some days. And Jason, you're a member of the chamber, and for many years, and we value you, and you're a small business owner, and you're a vet. So I think if people out there, if you really want to talk to someone about making sure that you are cybersecurity trained and everything else, please give Jason a call, because he's very knowledgeable in this. And Michael, how did you get started in this business?
So I've been in the IT space for over 30 years. I was a programmer. I date myself, but I was a COBOL programmer when I got out of college. And but I always had kind of a closet fascination with the security and hackers and stuff like that. So I always read about it, attended different hacker group meetings like B-Sides and stuff like that. And finally, then when I went back to school and got my MBA, that's cybersecurity was part of it. And of course, all I wanted to do was break into things, so I became proficient with the different tools and stuff, and became a certified ethical hacker, but then really kind of morphed beyond just the technology space. And one of the things that you'll see now is I've been around long enough to see where the chief information security officer was a technical subject matter expert in IT at first, but now with digital transformation, you're seeing that the CISOs are now, if they don't report directly to a CEO, the CEO has a channel directly to them for advice. And you're talking about someone now that generally oversees IT risk, the cybersecurity, and then compliance. And so I've just kind of grown with it, and just, I love it. I tell everyone that I interview, first thing is, this job has nothing to do with an episode of Mr. Robot. It's a lot more than that. And so they, a lot of times that kind of blows out their candle, but there's a lot to it. And if you don't want to learn every day, you're going to get run over by it.
It's so scary, and it's so true. This is an interesting question. With all the listening apps and devices, how do you think that is impacting security? Listening to Alexa, Google Help, etc. Either of you.
It definitely has an effect, I think, on privacy. It's not to fool. Everybody knows that these devices, have the ability to listen. Phones are the same. That's why you see Facebook ads pop up after sometimes just having a conversation with someone. I've experienced it as well. So I think it, as much as I hate to say that it's part of the norm, it kind of is in a way. So it's just one of those things that you need to know is possible, or it is happening, and just almost act accordingly. So don't try to expose any more, I guess, than you have to.
I think we've become a society because of our need for instant gratification. We've created our own dilemma, and what I mean by that is we want to utilize whatever it has to offer, but we never take the time to read the privacy implications or understand those implications. And so a lot of people, it's unbelievable what they will give away when they agree to some of these end user license agreements, the EULAs that you see on these apps or websites and stuff, or the cookies. People just blindly click yes, and if they really understood what they're giving up, they would think twice about it.
Interesting. I know on Facebook, I'm on it, and I get the ads, and I love the eyewear Maui Gym, and there was a special $39.95 for, it was limited edition. So I clicked on it and started. I'm like, these are some beautiful, and they're regularly $300 glasses. So I asked my husband, hey, would you like a pair? And he's like, this doesn't sound right, but. And I didn't even notice this, the capital J, and there was a capital I and a lowercase m, and normally it's a lowercase I. That should have been, my red flag, but I thought, this is a good deal. I better get it before they're sold out. I bought a couple. And then after I sent in my credit card information, I thought that was a dumb thing to do, because I looked back at the ad and there were no actually it said there's 300 comments, but nothing was visible. No comments were visible. And then later on, I get an ad, looks similar, but it's a same company product, and same thing. There was no comments, and it was just new. And I thought, and then all of a sudden, thank goodness, I get a text from my credit card and says, fraud alert, did you use this? And so I did call them, and I said, it was my purchase, but I think it's a fraud, so can we just not let it go through? It's just simple things like that. And I know, Michael, that you had said that there's 5 things maybe that you should look for and hover over the name. What are some of those other tips for people like myself that think, and someone actually, I did see a comment says, this is a hack. If it's too good to be true, it is.
Yeah, some of the things that are very simple to do is if you take your cursor and you hover over the to or the from in an email, and if it says it's from Microsoft, and then you see just some string of letters and characters, .com, red flag. Again, if it's demanding that you make a decision right now, businesses won't do that. The biggest indicator, and Jason, you'll probably smile when I say this, very, very loose command of the English language. A lot of times you can almost read it and tell what country they're from. and then just a legitimate organization will never, ever ask you for credentials over the email, or if they call you, they will never, ever ask for credentials. Now, you may say, well, I called the bank and they asked for my account number. You initiated that conversation. That's a trusted communication. You called them. If you ever get these types of emails or phone call scams, they're starting to be more prevalent too. Just tell them, hey, I hope you don't mind, but I need to verify this. And then you turn around and call, because another big one is the police department. That supposedly is authority, and that you'll tell them anything. Well, don't do it. It's little things like that. So just be on the lookout. Look at the sender. Look to see what the content is. Make sure that the grammar is correct. If there's like 3 spaces and a comma or 3 spaces and a period, a legitimate company would never send that out like that. And then look at what they're asking you to do. If they're asking you to click on a link, hover over that link and make sure that that domain is the same domain from the sender. If it's not, challenge it.
Those are good tips, very good tips. Another question here is TikTok really a big security risk? And how do people use the information scanned from the phone? Either of you?
I have heard that it is. I read an article that some security professional reverse engineered the app, and just the amount of information it was accessing on your phone, it was a long list of things. So yeah, like Michael said, when you download these apps and agree to install them, you're agreeing to let the app access all these things, your photos, your contacts, other apps. That's how they build their database of knowledge about you. So again, it's just knowing that the app is accessing, some pretty sensitive information, and make your decision to be okay with it, which most people aren't, and they probably shouldn't be. Or if you're okay with it because you want the app that bad, then you essentially accept the risk. And that's, a big thing when it comes to risk, because there has to be some level of acceptance. So you just got to make sure that you're well aware of what you're downloading, what you're installing, what it has access to, and then just make a good decision from there.
Right, and so there's a lot of senior citizens and parents that are getting on the internet now. And Michael, I'm going to definitely ask my parents to get that Authy or something to do the double verification switch. You always wonder, because they're a little bit more vulnerable. Do you see or any advice for people to tell their parents and loved ones? I know everyone's supposed to be careful, but what are like the common things that they should be told and do?
Oh, great question. Every time I call my parents, both of them will be like, boy, you ought to see what we did on Facebook. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I will always have a job thanks to, folks that use Facebook like that. But yeah, one of the things I would tell you is that everything on Facebook is meant, it allows you to connect. But again, think about what you're giving up. Every time you like something, every time you participate in these surveys they have or answer questions, they're building a profile about you. And so, like Jason said, for TikTok, is TikTok providing information to, another government? I don't know. But what I do know is their EULA, their end user licensing agreement, grants them access to everything on your phone. And, so what I would tell older folks, even younger people too, it doesn't have to just be older folks, but the reason that older folks are targeted is because generally, whether they're single, widowers, or just they generally are retired, so they have more money than younger people. That's one of the reasons they're targeted. And they're more willing to accept it because they don't want to seem like they don't know. They don't understand. So they are, I can do that. Don't be so rigid. Don't be afraid to challenge. If it, just like we said several times already this morning, if it seems too good to be true, It always is. There's those deals just don't exist. I would rather miss out on one deal than get suckered in 100 other ones, so that's what I would tell people is just be careful. If you don't understand the technology, don't use it. If you're not very comfortable, like with your banking, I would never suggest anyone do any type of financial or very confidential information. Use that in any way, shape, or form, unless you're very comfortable and you understand what it's doing.
Thank you. Jason, any other words on that?
No, he hit the nail on the head. It's just, yeah, I mean, the elderly people are definitely, targeted for those exact reasons that Michael mentioned. So he's, so just talk to your parents and
Yes.
make sure that, my mom's the same way. So we always have a lot of conversations about social media and what she's doing on Facebook, Twitter, and all the other apps that she uses. So, but yeah, it is definitely, definitely need to be educated.
Jason, maybe you should start a program, you interviewing your mom on cybersecurity and do something on the web. Because I saw another gentleman, I forgot who he was. He talks to his mom about different issues, and it's like a big hit. And you guys can educate them.
I think it's great for elderly people to use technology. If you want to get my dander up quickly, it's how people that take advantage of folks like that.
I know, I agree. Well, we're about out of time, but is there any question that I didn't ask that you would like to answer, or any other closing remarks, words of encouragement? Jason, I know, tell us again, what's your website so we can find you?
The website is elevated-tech.com. I'll drop it in the chat as well with our phone number and my email address. But yeah, I mean, really, we've covered most of it. I think the biggest thing, again, is just human nature, is get training. If you don't have training, slow down, verify anything that looks even the least bit suspicious. And that will go a long way to keeping, yourself and your organization secure.
And Michael, you'll also put your information in the chat room, but any closing remarks or anything that we didn't ask, or any other cute stories? And how's your daughter doing now?
She's actually, her Instagram following, she got most of them back. She actually was on a podcast that asked her what happened and then how to fix it. And she's had a lot of people ask her about two-factor authentication, so now she's an expert. But no, I think, just kind of in closing, if you have questions, one of the big things that I like doing is developing these relationships. And it doesn't have to be about buying anything. If you have questions, I'm very passionate about cybersecurity. If you have questions, shoot me an email. If you have other questions, give me a call. I'm here to help, and I love talking about this space.
And we can find you on the website. Is it pathwayforensics.com?
Yes, it is.
Good guess.
Very good guess.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Michael and Jason, for taking the time to educate us on cybersecurity. It's everywhere. It's real. And during this pandemic, it's a good time to reset and be secure for when things reopen in a better way. I wish you both a great week. And everyone, this will be available on our website and on Facebook Live if you want to share this with anybody out there, especially your parents. Thank you so much. And we'll see everyone again next Tuesday when we have another business webinar. Thank you again, Comcast Business, for sponsoring today's webinar as well. Thank you.
Everyone, thank you.